Okay, we're going to do inheritance part 2. We're going to look inside RPG Maker now and see how inheritance works here. So let's take a look at window gold again. Sometimes we see methods being invoked or called and it doesn't appear to be part of the class. This thing here. Um, so it says this, which usually means this, or I guess it always means this, the class that we're talking about. But this method here, we don't see it. We've got initialize, call spacing, refresh, value, currency unit, and open. So where is it coming from? Well, if we look up at the top here, window gold.prototype is equal to object.create window selectable. So based on what we've already learned, equals means we're setting something on the left equal to what is on the right. So window gold is equal to window selectable. Essentially, we're creating an object from this. So this is just what we've seen before, but it looks different. Window selectable is the parent or base class, and window gold is the child class or the subclass. So window gold starts with all of the functionality that we get from window selectable. So that's one way how we can use this dot something, and it won't be on window gold, but we will see it on window selectable, or we could see it on window selectable. We'll get to that. And then after we have started off with the base class, we can then add to it with things that are important to window gold but are not important to window selectable. So we start with window selectable and then we add on some method to get the value of the window gold, to get the currency unit of the window gold. These things are not needed by window selectable, so they are not part of window selectable. It's specific to window gold. So there is a lot of code up here that might just not seem to make sense. So we need to break it down. This function window gold, this is technically a constructor function, but we're going to think of window gold like a class because that's essentially how it's being used. So we start with a class and it inherits from window selectable. Then at the moment, this variable here, constructor, it will be set to window selectable because that is what the constructor value is on window selectable. So this starts off as window selectable. So all we need to do is change that to be equal to window gold. The constructor value is useful when you want to know what type an object is. So if we want to check the type of, if we have an object that is of the type window gold, if we don't update this constructor to say window gold, when we check the constructor, it could say, well, this is still window selectable. And then you get some funky, maybe you'll get a false value instead of a true value or something like that. So we just need to update that to window gold. Right, let's look at the scene. Let's look at the scene menu where we are creating the gold window. So we've seen this before. We are creating a property called gold window, and we are setting it equal to new window gold, and then we pass in rect. So we've seen this line, this window gold. So we go back to window, new window gold, that is this. So we are running the function window gold, and this then runs this dot initialize, and then we'll come back to this in a sec. So what is this dot initialize on window gold? Well, it's this part here. So we will see some syntax that you may recognize here. This dot call. So in a previous video, we did something like this here, where we take a variable, we fill it with some kind of method or function, and then we use dot call to call that function at a different time. So here we're doing something similar, but instead we are saying take window selectable dot prototype dot initialize and then call it. So why are we doing this? Well, when we create window gold and we base it off of window selectable has its own initialize method, and we can find that if we just control click on window selectable. We see here window selectable, it has an initialize method, and it does quite a lot. So we still want window gold to do all of this, but as soon as we create our own initialize method on window gold, it then overwrites what we got from window selectable. But we still want the original method to run, so that's why we call window selectable dot prototype dot initialize and then call it. And the important part is we pass in this. So we pass in window gold as context. So when this runs, window gold will be the one that gets updated from this. I hope that makes sense. So all of this happens on window gold. Window gold underscore index equals -1. Window gold underscore cursor fixed equals false. All of this happens to window gold. And of course, this method requires the rect parameter or argument to be passed in. So after we pass in this, we also pass in the parameter. And this works. So if you have num1, num2, you just have to pass it in like this. You start with this, and then you pass in all the parameters we need. But we don't need that. And then I think everything else is kind of just what we've seen. So the important parts are we need this function so that we can call new window gold and then treat it like a class. Window gold is set up by beginning with a copy of window selectable, and then we build on top of it with what we want it to do. And we need to make sure we update the constructor variable or property to window gold. Oh yeah, so why do we do this in the first place? Because we want to run this dot refresh inside the initialize method, that's the only reason we have to do this. If we didn't want to run this.refresh, you can just cut that all out, and anytime window gold runs an initialize method like this, it will simply use the one it got from window selectable. But because we want to alter it in some way, make a change to it, we have to overwrite the method like that, call the original because we still want it to do that, and then we add our own code to it there. But yeah, you don't want to just trust what I say. You don't want to just believe that I'm telling the truth. We want to actually verify it to see how it works. So we have this method here. We don't see where it's coming from, but now we know that all of Windows selectable, window gold has access to. So maybe it comes from there. So let's check Windows selectable. We can scroll all the way down and we still won't find it. We still won't find what we need. But that's when we notice Windows selectable is also a subclass. Windows selectable also has all of the functionality of window scrollable. But if we check that, we won't find it either. But window scrollable is also a subclass of window base. And if we check window base and we go really far down, we will find draw currency value. So there it is. Window base, draw currency value. This goes all the way up the line through window scrollable, window selectable, and then window gold. So, subclasses can be subclasses. And it just means that window base will pass on all of its functionality to window scrollable. Window scrollable will pass on all of the functionality of window base and window scrollable to window selectable. And then window selectable has all of that functionality and then passes all of it on to window gold. So anything that's in window base can be used in window gold, and window base is a base class for a lot of different windows, maybe even all of them. It would be worth looking through window base just to see what you can do with a base window, because just here are some examples. Draw item name, and then you pass in an item and some coordinates of where you want it to write the name. There's draw face, which draws an actor's face graphic. Draw icon if you want to pass in an icon index and it will draw an icon on the screen. So from most windows, you have access to all of these really useful methods. And again, you don't need to understand exactly how every part of this works to begin with. It might be worth looking through it to understand it. But all you need to know is this sounds like it will draw an actor's face to the screen. What you need is a face name, a face index, X, Y, width and height. And then, like we've seen before, we can just type in draw face, open a bracket, and then you can see how something else has used it. So you don't even need to know just at a glance what you use in these parameters. You can see exactly how it's used. So there is a method on the actor object or actor class, I guess it is, dot face name, and if you use that, that's the first parameter of draw face, and then actor face index. So yeah, you can just copy this line, figure out how to get the actor value here, figure out what's being passed in here, and then you can draw an actor's face graphic to pretty much any window you create. And then same here, change text color, draw text, a lot of it is very easy to understand. Even if you don't know how it draws the text to the screen, you know how to draw text to the screen. And I hope you get the difference of what those two sentences mean. I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but yeah, you can see how looking through, I'll just go window gold again. So you can see how the inheritance works here. You can access this .draw currency value because of the sort of snaking pattern of inheritance. And yeah, I think that was pretty much all I was going to cover on inheritance in RPG Maker, because it's just syntax. We understand inheritance based off the last video. I think the last video made it quite easy to understand what inheritance was, and hopefully it was good enough to understand why we would use it. I think this video just shows you how we do it in RPG Maker. I don't think I've explained in any more detail how it works. It's just shown you a different way of doing it. So we start with the window gold. We will create an object, window selectable, which essentially just says give all of what window selectable can do to window gold. And then we add stuff to it. We want to add some refresh, we want to add a value, a currency unit. And then the rest of it's just what we've seen. We've got methods, we're using this call, we're calling the methods, we're returning values. Yeah, we've seen all this before. We're creating variables and setting it equal to another value. Yeah, some of this stuff we haven't seen. I'm sure you could probably figure this one out. Maybe we went over it in the last video actually, but yeah, where this is coming from, you can probably figure it out by going down the line, having a look at where content is created, things like that. But yeah, the last thing that I should go over is this little thing here, because it does a lot more than we probably think it does just at a glance. So these three dots here, in JavaScript code, this is called a spread operator. So spread operator. And to explain what it does, we'll need to go into what arguments is. So when we pass in values into these parentheses here, it gets the way that the system handles it is by creating an object and then putting those arguments inside of it. So this is a variable called arguments that we get from the parameters we pass into a function. And I will type this out so you can see it in action as well. It's not just me saying words at you. So let's show what a spread operator is. We'll take this person and we'll open up a script. Say you start with an array that is 2, 3, and 4. So we know what this is. An array is a variable that can store many different values. So at the moment it holds the number 2, the number 3, and the number 4. But then say we have the variable result, and we are going to say this has the value of 1 and also a spread of array. Now, unless I've typed this up wrong, what this does is splits this array into individual values, and then yeah, we can just use it. So instead of this being an array now, this is now the value 2, the value 3, and the value 4. So let's console log the result. So we open up the console and we click. Do you see what happened there? We create a new array. We start with the value 1, and then we tell it to spread out the other array, which essentially just adds all of the values into the array where we tell it to. So to see another way that this works, we start with the value 1, but what if we start with the spread first, and then we have the value of 1 at the end? Open up the console. There. So we have 2, 3, 4, and then 1, and this is a new array. So the spread operator takes what is inside an array and then spreads it out. It takes each individual item out and then yeah, just puts it into whatever you're using it in. Now I do need to mention the spread doesn't just work on arrays. It works on any iterable object, and we won't go into what an iterable is too much in this video, but if you want to look it up, it's iterable, as in you can iterate through the object, which means you can step through it. So in this example, you can step through an array by saying this is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. 0 index, 1 index, and then 2 index. So there are versions of objects that you can iterate through. Not all of them, but there are some. You can iterate through a string, because a string or a piece of text is just a collection of characters. So if you iterate through hello, it would say h, e, l, o. One item at a time. So how does that come back to this? Well, when we pass the parameters into a function, it gathers them up into an object called arguments, and then how we use that is we call initialize and we spread out those arguments into the parentheses. So with window gold, all we do is pass in rect. So arguments only has one value, and so what we get out here, initialize, is the one value, rect. So as an example, if window gold required rect, an x value, a y value, and also just an amount or something like that, arguments would these would be compacted into one variable, and then when you spread it out, this would then say, well, we need rect, we need y, x, y, and we need an amount. That is what the spread is doing here. It says take all the values inside here, spread them out, and pass them into the initialize method. Let's see, was there anything else? Oh yeah. Again, you don't want to just trust me when I say something. You want to see it working. You want to see the evidence. So we can say console log arguments, and let's just see what happens if we open the menu. So when we open the menu, it will, I guess it's already done it. Okay, it's going to run this a lot then, it seems like. Yeah, so we have logged out arguments, and here we can see it only has one value in it. It's got these other things, but that's part of the object. That's not a value stored within it. So the only value stored inside is rectangle, which is the rect, and it's got some values associated with the rect. So when we spread out these arguments, it's just got one thing in it, and that is rect. So that's what gets passed into this method here. So this dot initialize all the arguments, this dot initialize, and then all the arguments. All right. Okay, well that's I think there's been a lot in this video. I don't think the video is very long, but there's a lot of information in here. So let's just recap quickly. If you don't see a method in our class, it's probably coming from a base class. Subclasses gain all the functionality of the class they inherit from, and all the functionality from the classes they inherit from as well. Subclasses can also be subclasses. Sometimes the snake can get very long, and you need to look through a lot of different classes until you find what it is you're looking for. Just going over again, that if we overwrite a method, we can call the base class method and pass in our subclass as a parameter. And lastly, there are a lot of useful methods inside Window Base, and I do recommend you check out. Just give you some idea of what you can do as well. And then yeah, the spread operator, which it's not too bad once you've seen it be used a few times. Like maybe this is not a great way of visualizing it, but I think this is that we create a new array, but we're just saying stick all the values of this array inside. And then we can say, I want something at the start, or I want something at the end. You know, just whatever. And maybe just the last thing, just to muddy the waters a bit. Say this is array A, and then this is array B. So we'll say 1, 2, and 3. And then we have 4, 5, and 6 and B. You can spread A and then spread B. And then it mashes them together. So this is array A. All that values have been pushed in here, and then array B, all the values have been pushed in here. So you've created a new array from the two previous ones. And then just like the other example, we can start with B and then spread A like that. And then I'm sure you can guess what will happen. Yep, we get it the other way around. 4, 5, 6, then 1, 2, 3. Okay, thanks for watching. If anything hasn't been explained well, let me know. I will try to make maybe a video in between. So I don't know what number this is. If it's, I think it's maybe 14. I can maybe do a 14.5 video to explain some things a bit better. All right. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. And I'll see you in the next one.